Welcome, Martha.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. For those of us who don't know who you are, give us an introduction to how you became the drought-resistant plant lady that you are today.
Okay, I am named for a victory gardener who fed 8 people from her garden in upstate New York, Buffalo.
Wow.
No pressure.
No pressure.
So here I am in Tucson, Arizona, trying to repeat her success. And it's
Wow.
not always easy because since August of 2024, we have been in a drought.
Oof.
What happened last year?
2024.
Yeah, our monsoon season last summer, it was going great. And then in August, it was as if somebody turned off the faucet.
My gosh.
And during the fall and the winter, we do get those nice big soaking rains from Pacific storms. They didn't come. So this past spring, the forecast was for an above normal monsoon season. Didn't
And
happen.
nothing came.
Hardly anything. It looked really promising in June. We had the remnants of Hurricane Alvin, and then hardly anything in July or August. But I've got all the shades closed right now because we're recording. Outside, big, scary clouds are forming. We're getting something from the Pacific, probably later today, tomorrow, and into Saturday, ruining people's weekend plans. But hey, you take the rain when you can get it.
Totally. And I know you're all set up to harvest and retain as much of it as possible. So before Tucson, where did you live before? Were you in a drought area before Tucson?
I'm from Pennsylvania,
Okay. No.
where
Okay.
it would rain for weeks and weeks and weeks, and everybody would get really upset and depressed about it because when is it ever going to stop raining?
hmm
And then I moved here, and rain was like something people celebrated, and I'm thinking, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think a big move, I just went through a big move too from zone 5B to 10B, different constraints, but it is wild to make such a drastic move as a gardener, as someone who likes plants, because all of a sudden you're working with an entirely new palette of plants. You going from, where you grew up to Tucson, which is cacti and succulents and, xeriscaping, must have been a huge transition for you.
It was. And here's the thing about gardening in Tucson. Your key question is, well, where's your water going to come from? Well, you could water your plants with that water provided by Tucson Water, but that gets expensive. And as much as Tucson Water urges us to conserve, you use a lot of water, they're more than happy to send you the bill. And then there's rain, which happens infrequently. Another thing a lot of us like to do is what's called gray water recycling. Like I did my laundry this morning and discharged that water onto 3 of my fruit trees. It was a combination of laundry soap and water, and I used the Oasis brand soap because it is water harvesting friendly. However, here's the thing about Oasis. We had a drought this summer. I have a fig in a planter that is connected to the gray water system, but I would have to have all the other emitters turned off before that fig could get anything. So I thought I was doing it a favor. I was pouring all sorts of dishwater on it because at this house the dishwasher is named Martha. Well, as it turns out, Oasis has some salt in it too. So the solution to the problem is you need to vary your flavors of water. Gray water, rainwater when you have it, and of course good old Tucson water courtesy of the city. We like rainwater because the sodium salt content is lower than the city water.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, rainwater is nature's purest form of water, right? So we want to use it. And I think, it's interesting. You're in the extreme, right? In Tucson, in the desert, where it's kind of life or death for your plants, whether or not you're harvesting water. But I think this concept of water harvesting has become more popular as our weather has gotten so much more volatile.
Yes.
I live in subtropical region in South Florida, and we had 6 weeks this year where we had no rain and really intense sun, and all of my plants died. Like all of my plants that I was growing in containers fried because I wasn't in tune with the Floridian weather. But even we're seeing more hurricanes, we're seeing more droughts, we're just seeing a need for all gardeners around the world really to become more resilient and more prepared. So when we talk about water harvesting, what is it? You wrote a book, Water Harvesting 101. What is water harvesting?
It consists of 3 activities. Number 1, redirecting rainwater away from where you don't want it to where you do want it. Like, I'll give you the example of my house. I got into water harvesting because I had to. I was told after I moved in by the ever-efficient neighborhood grapevine, and it is good, that during heavy storms, my house would flood. And when I was replacing the HVAC system, I saw evidence of that below the furnace room. That's where the floodwater came in, and it got so bad that it rotted out the return part of my ductwork. So
Wow.
I did not want that water in the house. It came close to coming into the house, and I tried various ways of fixing this problem. None of my earthworks creation efforts in the yard worked, so I got in touch with a local nonprofit organization that ran service learning workshops, and they came in and regraded my yard so that the water flows away from the house and into the yard where it can nourish trees and shrubs. Okay, that's one activity. The second activity, storing rainwater for later use. That's why I have the 1,500-gallon cistern in my side yard. It's storing rainwater, and over time I will use it in my raised bed gardens and also for my fig tree. And then there's number 3, which is recycling used water. And used water would be like what I did this morning. Instead of letting my laundry water go down the drain, it watered the fruit trees.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. And it's kind of wild that we don't do all of this already. You know, like it's kind of wild that this is an up and coming trend in response to climate change instead of just like being something that we've always done in our homes. What are the benefits of water harvesting that we might not know? So obviously, if you do experience a drought, you have your own water. Are there any other benefits that we should know about?
Well, a lot of people irrigate their plants here. They have irrigation systems connected to Tucson water. When I was renting before I moved over here, my landlady had quite the crop of fruit trees, and she would water those by turning on the hose for hours and hours and hours. And guess whose side of the duplex that water faucet was on? Mine. And the sound would just drive me nuts. She never told me, but I'm sure her water bill was considerable. So after I moved over here, I decided I do not ever want to listen to the sound of running and running and running water again. Number 1, it's irritating. Number 2, it's expensive. And a lot of people have their irrigation on timers. Well, there would nothing that would ruin my sleep more than hearing irrigation coming on at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm thinking, how much is that costing me?
Right,
So
right.
there's no irrigation here except for the gray water system that feeds the laundry water out to the plants. 2 pomegranate trees, 1 lemon tree, and occasionally the fig. That's it. Everything else here that's a landscape plant lives off of rainwater. And yes, this past summer when things were really rough, yes, I did run out there with dishwater and wash the dishes for the plants in the yard.
So when you say all of your landscaping is watered with rainwater, do you mean natural rainfall or the rain that you collect in your cistern?
Rainfall. The cistern is strictly for food plants. I have what's called a rain garden. In other words, I have drought-tolerant trees and shrubs that can live off of rainwater, and I gotta say that most of them made it through the drought pretty well. I did lose a couple. I did lose a trailing indigo, and I did lose a rosemary, but everything else is pretty well survived. I mean, some of them look like they need to get a little further down the comeback trail, but they're all still here and they're still alive.
Okay, when you were building out your rain garden, what are like the top tips that you would give us for if we wanted to just make our gardens more drought tolerant without actually harvesting and saving our rainwater?
Now, here in Arizona, they recommend that we plant trees like mesquite, palo verde, and ironwood because they can live off of rainwater. So in other words, plant your native plants. Shrubs, they recommend things like desert hackberry, Arizona rosewood. I have a lot of feathery senna plants in the backyard, which I don't believe are native to this region, but they made it through the drought just fine. So pick drought-tolerant plants for your region. Another thing, if you do find yourself in drought, understand that some of your plants are not going to make it.
Yeah, totally.
And
I
that's
think you
just
need
how
to
it is.
allow, yeah, you need to allow for attrition. I think in any climate, right? Like just things happen and you have to be okay with that. Yeah, I think you pointing out the native plants makes so much sense too, because if they're growing in meadows in your region, like if they're growing natively on their own without us managing them at all, then they're probably going to be super resilient in your home. And then just pay attention to lighting stuff. But I want to talk to you more about harvesting, because we have a whole other episode on just drought friendly gardening like that. So you kind of mentioned three different ways. So let's talk about the first way, this redirecting the water. What are the different ways that we just redirect the water to make sure that we don't flood or that we don't get water accumulating in any areas?
Okay, well, let's think about the top of the water harvesting system. This roof right above me, it's about 500 square feet, and it drains into a rain gutter that is connected to a downspout. And right below that downspout, where that water pours out of, it pours out into what's called a swale. And think of a intermittently flowing rock-filled creek. Very common if you're going on hikes around here. If you go up in the mountains, you're going to see lots of rocky creek beds with no water in them because the water only flows intermittently when there's a flood. That's a swale. Now,
Okay.
where does the swale water goes downhill, away from the house, into a basin. Basin, think of a bowl. Taking communion, having a bowl of soup, that sort of thing. Basin is there to provide a resting place for that water that has flowed downhill from the swale, a resting place where it can slow down. It's resting now and it's soaking into the soil, spreading out, and on its way down to the water table, it's passing by roots and giving those plants a drink.
Oh, so the basin, when you originally said basin or bowl, I was thinking like a stone bowl. No, no, no. It's a basin of land that the water just can soak down into.
It's a big hole in the ground, and if you look at my front yard, it looks like it was struck by a meteor. It's a deep hole.
Okay.
Not so deep that, if somebody walked into it, you wouldn't see them. But this thing can hold about 250 gallons. It is connected to another basin through a little low pathway. That basin serves as overflow, because in a 1-inch rainstorm, you can collect about 250 gallons. Well, the thing about rain is we can't say, okay, we got an inch of rain, we're good, thank you. Rain is going to keep falling for as long as it's going to. So you need that overflow to go somewhere. So I have another basin, and if you looked at this from above, it would look like an hourglass.
Okay, got it.
Now, there's a third thing called the berm. And a berm is like a big hug around the front of my yard. And the reason I have the berm is that you want to keep water on your property, because water, it gets out on the street, it joins up with all those other water
Right.
molecules, and they cause floods, which are a big problem here. Municipal flooding can be very catastrophic in this part of the world.
So is it like a moat? What is the berm?
It's like an earthen dam. A little earthen dam in my front yard.
And how did you go about building that out?
Local nonprofit organization with service learning volunteers, plus a contractor with a mini dozer, came in and sculpted my yard, and it was like watching a dancer. This guy was good.
Wow. So I am looking at my front lawn, and I have maybe a little varied elevation, but I think a lot of people have pretty flat lawns. So if I'm looking at my home, trying to think, okay, thinking so the swale is going to go from my roof, from my house down to a basin. Do you have to have a slope? If you have flat land, is there a way to work around that?
You could. I would say try basins. This is the swale to the basin. But the other thing, in your part of the country, you get a lot of water and then you don't. I would recommend having some sort of water storage like a cistern. The thing is, the earthworks in my front yard and in my backyard helped alleviate the flooding problem. But what really put it into the solve column was adding that 1,500-gallon cistern.
Okay.
That's 1,500 gallons of water that's no longer flooding my backyard.
Right. Okay. So you said the first one was this passive
Yes.
passive technique, which it's the swale, it's the berm, it's figuring out when it rains, when you have movement and puddles of water, where are they all going on your property, and how can you keep them on your property without them going into the street? Then there's this active thing, which I think gardeners are excited about because then you have the water as a resource. Because in the basin, can you use that water down the line, or the basin, that water just soaks back into the earth?
That water soaks back into the earth. And the thing is about passive water harvesting basins in this part of the world, I would not depend on it for gardening. In this part of the world, it's helpful to have a cistern and just let the passive water harvesting features serve as a place to get the water so that your trees can have a nice drink and your shrubs can have a nice drink. But in your garden, I would say use that cistern water. And if you have to use it, your city water. Cistern water, as we said before, is preferred because it has lower sodium salt content.
Okay, so let's talk about this active cistern. I think like the lo-fi version of this is a rain barrel. So can you walk me through like the most affordable, easy, I can get it set up in a weekend versus what you have, which is like a very intense cistern situation that you're installing? Like, can you kind of walk us through the different options and how it works? So it's all connected to your gutters essentially, right?
What a lot of people start with here are rain barrels.
Yeah.
50-gallon barrels. You can daisy chain those together and have quite a collection system. Now, the thing with the daisy chain is at the end of the chain, you need to have some outlet for your overflow and have that place, have the overflow going to some place where, well, it's not going to come back into your house, like a little basin for it. And I was told a few months ago by a local store that sells them, one of those costs about $50. So very affordable. You can buy the plumbing parts and do it yourself if you're handy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, gateway drug for a lot of people is rain barrels.
So, and a rain barrel basically just attaches to your drain pipe, right?
Well, what you do with that is you have the rain gutter coming down, and either you have that set up so that the water is running straight into the rain barrel, or there's your rain barrel, there's your rain gutter, and it's dripping or it's flowing into a screen. You want to keep the bugs out. You know, we have mosquitoes too.
And leaves that might be in your...
Yes, leaves. Okay. Yeah, you want to have a way of filtering out the leaves. I have on the downspout in the backyard, the one that drains from the roof, I have what's called a rain head on that. It has a screen to keep the crud out.
Okay, cool. So rain barrel is option one. Go get it at your local hardware store, set it up in a weekend. And then does the rain barrel, do they have spouts? Like, how do I access that water?
Okay, here's the thing. The ones that are made for water harvesting, you can either put a hose bib on it or they're made that way.
Okay.
Now, somebody's going to say, oh, good, I just got a drinking water source. Don't do it.
No. Standing water? No. Don't do that.
Well, standing water, and plus, you know how you're driving down the freeway and you see a rest area and you're real happy? Mm-hmm. Well, that's how birds view our roofs.
Yeah.
So there's things that birds do on roof that you do not wish to be drinking.
That's going to trickle in. Right. When the rain hits the roof. And
I do know
down.
people who drink their cistern water. Here's what they do. They filter it.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you need to get your water tested so that you know what to filter out.
Okay.
So don't drink the water without filtration.
Okay. Good. Very smart. Very good PSA. Okay. And then you're basically attaching your hose to the rainwater, to the rain barrel, and then watering your plants with it or setting up a timed irrigation situation. So what's the next step? Do you graduate into a cistern?
Well, I did not have a rain barrel to start out with. I was just using good old city water, and then in 2020 I decided to go big and get a cistern, and then after that I got raised beds for my gardens. So, you know, I'm going big now, and with this rain coming in, I may have a full cistern by the end of the weekend, which is raising possibilities of a nice fall winter garden.
Yeah. So what does a cistern look like for people who might have not ever seen one?
It looks like a giant tank.
Okay. And it's above ground?
It is above ground. And here's the thing. I know people who do have below ground cisterns. They hire swimming pool companies to dig and build them for them. And in that case, you're going to need some sort of pump to pump the water out. And yes, people do use solar-powered pumps here because we have abundant sunshine. And in fact, next week I'm going to a party at the local organization that installed my water harvesting features is having a party where they're going to be serving rainwater drinks. And that water is coming out of their 10,000-gallon subterranean cistern that has a
Mm.
filtration system.
That is built, okay, has the filtration system built into it, but yours is above ground.
Mine is above ground. I don't drink the water. I have a little hose bib. And here's the thing about attaching a hose to a cistern. That is gravity-fed cistern. The water comes out slowly. So instead of waiting forever for a garden hose to get enough pressure in the system to run it out to the raised bed gardens, I use a short hose. It's actually a laundry supply hose, 6 foot, and I connect that to the cistern. I connect the other end to a 2-gallon watering can, and I walk around to the various raised beds. That's how I water my garden.
Okay, got it. So that's interesting because if you want to have a garden, if you have something that you want to water your plants when you're installing your cistern, you've got to really figure out, ideally, it's close to the garden.
Yes, you do not want to be walking all over the place with heavy watering cans.
Now, could I say I have irrigation in my raised beds or in my garden? Can you connect irrigation to a cistern?
A lot of people do.
Okay, so it's just plugging your irrigation into that short
Yes, a
hose.
lot of people do that.
Okay.
I don't because I'd prefer not to spend the money, but that's just me.
Okay, got it. So, and cisterns can hold, what's the smallest cistern on the market and what's the largest one?
I have seen them like a 200 or 300 gallons. I have 1,500 gallons, and the reason I have that is because that's based on how much water I'm going to use and also the space available for a cistern.
Okay. And how did you calculate how much water you're going to use with your garden?
The organization that installed it did the calculations for me. This organization is called Watershed Management Group. You go to their website, watershedmg.com, do a search on water budget. They have a calculator.
Oh, cool.
And I just tried using this calculator. Unfortunately, recently the water company decided that it couldn't find my water meter, which is really strange because I've lived here for 21 years. So we went through several months of where's your water meter, Martha? Eventually we got that sorted out, but the reason why this is an issue with the Watershed Management Group's water budget calculator is you have to get your water consumption off your water bill. And in winter and summer, I didn't have accurate readings for winter, and I'm not really sure what they're saying for summer, so I'm going to have to ask WMG because I'm going to take a class on this water budgeting thing so I can speak a little bit more knowledgeably about it, and I'm going to need some help with them on how do I read my water bill?
Yeah, totally.
Because they bill by consumption bands, but that's not necessarily equal to how much water you have consumed each month.
Right. Wow. Okay.
So... yeah, it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly.
That's like going right over my head. But I hear ya, and that's very fascinating. But I like that there's a calculator, so it doesn't need to go
Yes,
over.
there is.
It can go over my head if I just go use the calculator. What are common mistakes that you see with people installing water rain barrels or cisterns?
This is something that got a lot of people this past summer. They got quite a cistern array in hopes of capturing lots of water to water either landscape plants or a fruit and vegetable garden or both. And then the rain didn't come. So the thing to remember in your landscape is don't plant too many things. Plants grow. And then with your garden, what I ended up doing this summer with the summer garden, I just plumb gave up. I let it lay fallow for a while, and then I decided, there is nothing looking sadder than an empty garden. So I decided to plant tepary beans, which are a nitrogen fixer. And tepary beans have been historically used here for, hundreds if not thousands of years. They thrive on neglect. You don't have to water them very much. In fact, the less you water them, the more beans they'll produce.
Wow.
So I've got this little nitrogen fixing project going on while I'm having thoughts of, could I grow a big enough vegetable garden again this winter where I start eating salad for breakfast? Which is
to live up to your namesake and start sharing it with all your neighbors. That's so exciting. But it sounds like if you're going to do a cistern or a rain barrel, if it's like ideally maybe install it in the winter so you could harvest water before, so you have it full before, or at least you have some water to start in the gardening season, because it sounds like some people got screwed where they planted the amount of plants that they thought the cistern would support and then it didn't, and then you're either paying the more expensive water bill or all your plants are dying.
Well, I got screwed with my cistern because I had it installed in 2020. We had
Mm.
all of 4 inches of rain the entire year.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how you guys do it. I've been to Tucson. Tucson is actually an incredible city. I've been to Phoenix. I've been all over that area, and it is so stressful. I feel like I'm so hyper aware of my water, like my
Yes.
water intake, and like when am I drinking something next? Like it's just a totally different way of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're the people who turn off the water when we're brushing our teeth.
Yeah, it's
Or
wild.
wet the soap, wash wet the soap, then rub the soapy water all over your hands, then rinse it off. Don't let the water run while you're washing your hands. We're those
Yeah.
people. But okay, 2020, 4 inches of rain. 2021, we had something like 15 or 16. July of 2021, it was like the month where it forgot to stop raining.
So
So
then
I had
you
a
were
full
able to fill it
cistern.
up.
Oh, I did then.
And does your cistern have some sort of outward measuring system so you can see at any time how full it is?
I do it the old fashioned way. I knock, knock, knock up the side.
Mm-hmm.
And if it has that deep bass sound, oh, there's water there.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I go further up the tank, it has that, the soprano sound, hollow.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you don't have water. And there's a ruler going up the side of it. So I went knock, knock, knock up this morning and I've got about 1,200 gallons now.
Nice.
Good.
Nice. You're growing some vegetables. So because we are going into our gardening season right now, we're both probably planting our edible gardens. I know in
Yes.
Florida, in my region, we plant in October. We plant our tomatoes in October. What do you like to grow? What does your garden look like?
Well, I'm looking at, for the fall, garlic,
Mm-hmm.
greens, lettuce. I may be a total idiot and try carrots and radish again. I'm that gardener who doesn't thin them, so I get
Me
these
too.
small carrots. So I think I'll just have to do note to self, go ahead and seed those, but when they start sprouting, be merciless and thin most of them out.
It's so funny. I was at the dentist this morning, and my dentist appointment literally took twice as long as it should have because my dentist is a gardener, so we have to talk about gardening. I'm like, yeah, I have my carrots, while he's like cleaning my
Mhm.
teeth. I was just talking about this with him too, that he doesn't thin his carrots either. And so we were both saying how carrots are hard for us, but I really want to succeed.
Gotta thin those carrots.
Gotta thin
Note
those
to
carrots.
self.
Gotta thin those carrots. So, anything else that, someone who has never harvested water before and wants to really get started, is there anything else that you would recommend us to be wary of or any other tips?
Well, I have a way for you to start water harvesting today. You
Amazing.
may have already done this thing, or you may have yet to do it today, and that is take a shower. And if you have a house like mine with a tub shower stall, with a tub spout that you run the water and make sure that water coming out of the spout feels just perfect, and then you get in there and take the shower, put a bucket under the tub spout, mix the water in there, pull the bucket out when you've got it right, take your shower, and after you're nice and dressed and refreshed, which of your plants needs a drink?
Oh my God, I love that. Right, we didn't talk about gray water. So we briefly talked about gray water, but that was a term I didn't know last year when I was learning about this for the first time. What constitutes gray water? Shower water, you mentioned, clothing wash liquid, what else?
Dishwater, okay, that water that could have gone down the drain, I consider that a source of recycled water too. Dishwater, laundry water, some people take it as far as what they wash their hands with, they take that out to the plants. Here's what you don't recycle: toilet water. Let that go down into the sewer.
Leave that for Finding Nemo.
Yes.
So there's the lo-fi way that you just suggested, which I think is genius, like catch the water that you're not using for your shower. And then it sounds like you have something more complex with your gray water. So is there a way that you like hire someone to redirect your pipes out to
Yes.
another system? How does that work?
I had a plumber install what's called a two-way valve. One side of this valve, if you have it pointed one way, it goes to the Pima County wastewater management. The other way, pointing downward, goes out to my garden. Water goes out, it runs out of the machine and down this pipe, and it goes outside to a stub out where it connects with irrigation lines that
Cool.
go to my lemon tree, my 2 pomegranates, and yes, there is an emitter that goes up to the fig. And if I have all the other emitters shut off, the fig gets a good drink.
That's amazing. So is it That feels pricey though, right? Because you're hiring a plumber to basically come and do this valve and then the pipe connected to the valve that has to go out your house.
Right. I've heard of people just connecting a hose to the drain hose off the washing machine, which may run into a laundry tray.
Mm-hmm.
That's how my former landlady harvested her laundry water to irrigate her tomato garden. And this was back in the 90s, and you had to be kind of secretive about doing this because it was illegal.
Right. Wow.
Nowadays, it is very widely encouraged here.
And then you mentioned you have to use specific soaps. So if you do want to harvest your water for your landscape, what are the things we have to look out for?
I recommend the Oasis soap because it has a relatively low sodium salt content.
So it's the salt
Now, the
we're
thing you
looking
can
at.
get in trouble with is like my container fig, and I kept throwing the Oasis gray water on it. I should have been mixing it up with some, well, fill up a 5-gallon bucket or two from the water faucet and give it some Tucson water or cistern water rather than just straight gray water. So like this big rainstorm that's coming in, I've been gray watering my trees. Well, I'm hoping that that gives us enough water to push any sort of salt residue from all the gray water down away from the roots.
So it's like flushing. So even with our
Yeah,
house
flush
plants,
it.
ever so often we flush our pots of house
Yes,
plants,
you
like,
do.
to get the calcium out. So it's the same thought. And that goes back to what you originally said is if you're using gray water, you don't want to exclusively use gray water. You want to rotate it.
Right.
Rotate the
Vary
gray
your
water.
flavors of water.
Vary your flavors of water. I love that. Vary your flavors of water. That's the parting words. They're very helpful. You wrote such an amazing book on this topic and you're such an expert. So where can people find you and your book to learn more if they want to end up taking this on and getting started? Because for most of the world, fall could be a great time to get something installed so that you get to collect that water all winter before your spring, while you and I are gardening all winter.
Go to westernskycommunications.com. That's where you can find my books. And while you're there, sign up for my free monthly newsletter and you get a copy of my water harvesting cheat sheet.
Oh, I love that. Very helpful. All right. Well, thank you so much. I mean, best of luck. I hope I'm going to do a little rain dance for you. I hope you get a ton of rain this weekend and it fills you up so you can grow all the tomatoes you want this summer. I mean,
Thank you. We appreciate it.
This winter. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.